If you've been wondering who is the best Cryo character in patch 3.8, you're at the right place. We're going to start with the GOAT herself, Ganyu, literal GOAT in both look and gameplay. She is one of the most powerful characters even as C0. Though she might be a powerful character, she also is a very boring character as C0. You will be staying there just using your burst and your charge tags. Talking about her burst, Celestial Shower has a 15-second cooldown and 15 seconds duration, the energy cost of 60, which means if you get enough energy in time, you will have 100% uptime on your burst. Her first Ascension skill is also a very powerful upgrade to her charge tags, giving you 15% crit rate on top of her being a Cryo character and having access to the Cryo Resonance. That is a whopping 30% crit rate bonus. Not to mention that her C1 allows you to decrease Cryo Res with your charge tags, while her C2 gives another charge to her Elemental skill, making it easier to build her burst back up. C3 and C5 gives extra 3 levels to your burst and Elemental skill respectively. Now, C6 is where the fun begins if you have the fun things. When you use Ganyu's Elemental skill, the next Frostflake arrow will not require you to charge it, which is amazing, because it also allows you to animation cancel. Animation cancel mechanics are always good to have in games for saving time, so for me, our Hokugot will be an S tier. Moving on to her sister, Shenhe. When Shenhe first came out, she was left under Ganyu's shadow, because Oyo thought that it was a good idea to release a new character while rerunning an existing amazing character. So most people chose Ganyu over Shenhe, including me. But in no time, people realized how good of a Cryo support she is when paired with Ganyu and Ayaka, as well as mono Cryo teams. Most of her damage buff will come from her elemental skill, Spring Spirit Summoning. This elemental skill scales with Shenhe's attack, but takes crit rate and crit damage into consideration of the benefactor of the skill. Something noteworthy is that with her second Ascension skill, you get extra bonuses to your burst, elemental skill, or normal and charge attacks based on pressing or holding this skill. He also has an AoE burst that helps you freeze enemies easier in freeze comps, while also reducing their cryo resistance, and on top of that, her first Ascension skill will reduce cryo resistance of enemies by another 15%. And best thing about her, she has a lot of options when it comes to building her. All she needs is a bunch of attack and energy recharge to use her burst of cooldown, and if you want to make it even easier to build your burst back up, you can get her C1 and have another charge of her elemental skill. This will also help you deal more damage in a single cycle. Her C2 on the other hand allows your characters to deal 15% more cryo crit damage, while granting 50% more uptime on your burst. All in all, great upgrades, but definitely not required. Shenhe alone isn't great, especially if you're not playing her with other cryo characters. But for her support capabilities, I will rate her S tier. Next up is Shenhe's nephew Chongyun. In my opinion, Chongyun is the easiest character to build because he doesn't require anything at all to work. You can leave his skills at level 1 and give him no artifacts or weapon, and he will still do what he is supposed to do, which is infusing your party with cryo and making them do cryo damage that leads to weird and unexpected team counts. And the main reason he was in the original national, to this day, he is still at least B+ for me. Talking about low investment and utility, our OG shielder/healer catgirl Diona is one of the best cryo batteries in the game. Her elemental skill Icy Pulse gives you a fair amount of shield, and thanks to her first Ascension skill, your active character with the shield will have their movement speed increased and stamina consumption decreased by 10%, which does wonders when you pair her with a character like Ayaka, where she uses her charge tags almost all the time. It has a press and a hold version. I'm almost always going to use the hold version since the shield amount is bigger. Since she is a bow user, you can equip Favonius Warbow or Sacrificial Bow to further increase your energy regeneration for both Diona and her other Cryo characters in your team. And to add to that, if you have C1, you will regenerate even more energy for yourself after your elemental burst runs out. Her C2 allows you to create more powerful shields for yourself and additionally to your teammates in co-op. Now, even though her C6 isn't that great in priest teams, it still is a big one. If your active character is inside of Diona's burst, you will gain 200 EM if that active character is about 50% HP. If not, then incoming heals will be 30% more effective. She is still a very good character to play and build, so for me, she is an A tier character. Talking about 4-star shielders, I cannot pass the opportunity to bring our sleepy girl Layla up. Even though she doesn't have the same battery potential as Diona, her shielding potential makes up for her lack of battery, so much so that people even call her Cryo Zhangli. Now, this shield potential comes from her elemental skill, Mika Formal Focus, which has a 12-second duration and 12-second cooldown, meaning that it has 100% uptime, and that is a big thing. Every 12 seconds, you can switch to your Layla and use her elemental skill to refresh the shield. Just like most shielders, you want to build her with a lot of HP, and on top of that, she can also benefit from the 4-piece tenacity of the middle of the help her create even bigger shields. But that's not all. Her elemental burst, Stream of the Star Stream Shaker, applies Cryo off-field and deals damage based on Layla's max HP with again 12-second duration and 12 seconds cooldown. Similar to Diona's C2, Layla's C1 will make her shield absorb more damage, while also allowing her to shield her teammates in co-op. Other than her C1, I don't think her other constellations are worth to talk about, and another downside to Layla is that as of patch 3.8, we still don't have a 4-star weapon with HP substat, meaning that you will either pull for Nilu's weapon or use a less optimal weapon on her, alternatively an energy recharge weapon like Pavonia's sword. But I hope that changes in the future with Fontaine knocking on our doors, considering that Hydro Resonance increases max HP by 25%, though we might see some Fontaine craftable weapons with HP substats. For me, Layla is a solid B+ character, but I can see her being an A tier character. The Cavalry Captain. To this day, I think Kaeya is still one of the best 3-4 stars in the game. His elemental skill is a straightforward talent. He deals cryo damage to enemies in front of him, but also has a great battery potential due to his second ascension talent that produces additional elemental particles when enemies are being frozen by this talent. Even though his elemental burst use isn't that big, it works like a charm in close combat situations, allowing him to be an off-field DPS. Being a cryo character, he has access to cryo resonance, and on top of that, his C1 also acts like a pocket cryo resonance for his normal and charge attacks. Even though constellations are hard to come by for starter characters, his C2 is a pretty good one. For each enemy kill, while his burst is in effect, his duration will increase by 2.5 seconds up to 15 seconds, meaning that he will have more than 100% uptime on his burst. And like that was not enough, his C6 will generate an extra icicle and will replenish 15 energy after casting his burst. So next time you see Kaeya in Paimon's shop, consider getting a copy of him. And with that being said, I think Kaeya is a B+ character compared to other Cryo characters. Up next is the physical character's savior, none other than Mika. His elemental skill Starfrost World has 2 modes. When tapped, his elemental skill will pierce through enemies with his arrow. When held, this allows him to aim and fire a Ryan Star Flare at one enemy. This will grant the detector effect to your active character, which allows them to deal 10% bonus physical damage up to 5 stacks with Mika's second ascension talent and Constellation 6, with a total of 50% physical damage bonus. Not to mention that he can also trigger Super Contact for your DPS to benefit from, while also helping you achieve the Cryo Resonance. And like that wasn't enough, he heals your active character with his burst whenever they land a normal attack, which works amazing with physical characters, since all they pretty much do is using their normal attacks. All in all, Mika is a great Cryo character that helps physical DPS characters. For that reason, he is A tier for me. And how can I forget about Rosaria when we're talking about physical? Her elemental skill, Ravaging Confession, has a similar animation to Shenhe's elemental skill. Her first ascension talent provides herself 12% crit rate for 5 seconds whenever Rosaria strikes an enemy from behind with her elemental skill. And on top of that, her second ascension talent has a great synergy with her first ascension talent. Whenever you cast Rosaria's burst, Rise of Termination increases crit rate of your active character by 15%, meaning that if you build 100% crit rate on Rosaria, you will give 15% crit rate to your active character. Not to mention, again, she is a Cryo character, which means you will get another 15% crit rate from the Cryo Resonance if your party has another Cryo character in it. Her C2 will further increase her supporting capabilities by increasing the duration of the burst by 4 seconds, making its duration 12 seconds with a cooldown of 15 seconds. And C4 is yet another amazing upgrade for Rosaria, allowing her to regenerate 5 energy when her elemental skill scores a crit hit. Her C6, on the other hand, is probably the biggest reason she is such an amazing physical support. Her elemental burst, Rites of Termination, will decrease enemies' physical resistance by 20% for 10 seconds. If you're a fan of physical teams, then what are you waiting for? Go and build a Rosaria. Even though her rockets were nerfed throughout the years, she still is an A-tier support for me. Before we move on to the next character, I would like to ask you guys to subscribe to the channel and leave a like if you enjoy the content. I spend a lot of times on these videos and I would appreciate the support. How can I forget about the physical queen and user license agreement, also known as Eula? If you like big numbers and big damage, then Eula is your girl. Even though my Eula isn't built properly, my biggest crit damage achievement belongs to her. Let me know in the comments what's your highest crit damage achievement. Her elemental skill, Ice Tide Vortex, will allow you to decrease physical and cryo resistance of enemies that are hit by the skill. Ice Tide Vortex can also be used as an animation cancel mechanic, making Eula deal more damage in a shorter period of time. And about 90% of her damage will come from her elemental burst, Glacial Illumination. Upon casting her burst, Eula's elemental skill cooldown will reset to 0, allowing her to do a quick normal attack and then use her elemental skill to cancel the animation of her normal attack. She will also summon a Lightfall Sword that gets bigger with each attack up to 30 stacks, with a base damage on 725% at level 10 and 150% damage per stack, making its damage 4500% at 30 stacks. Her C2 decreases the cooldown of her elemental skill when held, making the cooldown same as the press version. So when you have her C2, you don't have to use her elemental skill by pressing it anymore, since the cooldown will be the same. In C6, it becomes even easier to play Eula, since she starts with 5 stacks of energy out of 30 required to hit the max stacks, and on top of that, with a 50% chance, she will get additional stacks when performing her attacks, making it so you reach 30 stacks way faster. In my opinion, Eula is a super fun character to play, even though building her can be a bit hard. To this day, I still don't have a proper physical damage bonus cap, so wish me luck, guys. And not to mention, the last time she had a banner was back in 2.3, which was late 2021, almost 2 years ago. So before she gets jailed by Hoyo again, go get a copy of her. She is one of the best physical carries in the game, so she is an easy S tier for me. The unwanted zombie girl Qiqi, at least by most people, because I want Qiqi since I'm a big completionist. I have been playing this game for over 2 years and I hit AR60. I also had multiple alt accounts throughout my Genshin career, and I still don't have a copy of Qiqi, while everyone is complaining about losing their 50-50s to Qiqi. For the love of God, Hoyo, next time I lose a 50-50, please let it be Qiqi. And talking about Qiqi, I recently made a video about me spamming 100+ wishes on the standard banner, so if you would like to check that out as well, it will be on the top right. Enough bitching for now, so let's move on to what makes Qiqi a great character. Qiqi is completely broken in co-op. She is an on-field healer, which means she has to be on the field and damage enemies to heal your other characters. And guess who is on the field when you play co-op? Everyone is on the field when you play co-op. That means you're not losing any DPS by having her on the field, and that makes her an amazing character. Especially if you're playing with new players. You let them do the damage and enjoy the game while you make sure they don't die. So for me, she is an A-tier character in co-op. Oh, my poor sweet child, Aloy. Let's agree on one thing, guys. Hoyo did Aloy dirty. Her kit is lackluster. They didn't even give PC players her bow. So I think that's on Sony. Apart from that, she still doesn't have any consolations. Aloy cons Van Hoyo, huh? Is a budget Cryo Yoimiya at best in my opinion with the way she is right now. Hoyo abandoned her and I don't think she will be getting any consolations in the future. So for that reason, she is D tier for me. I usually don't even have D tier in my tier list, but yeah, it is what it is. If I were Sony, I'd sue Hoyo. And next up is the opposite of Aloy, the star of the show, Ayaka. Come on guys, it's no surprise that of all people, I would think that Ayaka is the best Cryo character in the game as of patch 3.8. It's not even an argument. But let me put my bias aside and explain why she is the best. Her elemental skill Kamisata art, Ryoka summons a blooming ice and knocks up enemies inside of its radius and deal AoE cryo damage. The reason I mentioned her elemental skill before her normal and charge decks is because of her first ascension skill that grants Ayaka 30% damage bonus for 6 seconds on her normal and charge decks upon casting her elemental skill. Now that we are talking about her normal attacks, I can bring up her alternate sprint that infuses her normal and charge attacks prior for as little as 10 stamina. On top of that, her second ascension skill restores 10 stamina and grants additional 18% cryo damage bonus when enemies are hit by her alternate sprint. Moving on to her main source of damage, elemental burst, Usato art, Stometsu. Ayaka will summon a frostflake that moves forward during its duration. Now, if you want to make sure that your burst hits the enemy for its full duration, you will either have to freeze them or use an obstacle to stop it from going forward, something like a Zhangli pillar or Geotraveler pillar, since Ayaka's burst will knock enemies back as it goes forward. But worry not, most of the bosses in the game has resistance to any kind of crowd control, so they will take the full damage regardless. Even though she's an amazing character at C0, let's talk about some of her constellation. Her C1 basically allows you to decrease the cooldown of your elemental skill by 0.3 of a second whenever your normal and charge decks deal cryo damage. This can come in handy when you're a Spiral Abyss and dealing with waves of enemies, allowing you to use your elemental skill more frequently and keep a higher uptime on your first ascension skill bonus. Her C2 is an upgrade to her already broken burst, which allows her to summon 2 additional Frostflakes, but only 20% of the original Frostflakes damage. On paper, this is a 40% damage bonus to her elemental burst. Talking about her elemental burst, her C3 grants 3 extra levels to her burst. Ayaka is one of the rare characters that gets this buff at C3, because normally most characters get access to this at C5. Her C4 is, I think, the best in this list. She gets yet another upgrade to her burst that allows her to shut enemies' defense by 30% for 6 seconds. Let's not forget that Ayaka's burst duration is 5 seconds, meaning that in a situation like where you hit an enemy with the full duration of your burst, you will keep this buff for 11 seconds. Her C5 is the usual extra 3 levels for her elemental skill, though not too much to talk about. All in all, an okay buff. And her C6 is, I think, quite niche. Every 10 seconds, Ayaka gets a buff that increases her charge attack damage by 298%. I don't know why Hoyo just didn't make this flat 300%. Don't ask me why, because I don't know either, but it is what it is. As soon as you deal damage with your charge attack, the 10 seconds cooldown will start again. This cancellation, in my opinion, is a bit of an overkill. I've seen people deal 300k plus damage with their charge attack compared with Shenhe. For me, Ayaka is on another level, and for that reason, I will place her in the Ayaka tier. And don't forget that this is only my opinion and not some facts, so let me know in the comments which character is your favorite, and also check out my other tier list. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.